Good evening and welcome to the Dawg post-game show. The Browns win. Yes, they did. They defeated the Texans, the Houston Texans, 10-7 this afternoon. What a great win. Any win is a big win for the Browns. Many people were coming into the game saying this must be a must win, and Browns got it on a very windy, wild, crazy afternoon affair. There was a weather delay at the beginning of the game, lasted about 30, 45 minutes. I live down here in Columbus, and we had the storms come through here first, and was telling family and friends that they were going to get hit soon. And right as the game began for the Brownies and the Texans, the game got delayed till about 1:45 here. And anyway, the game went off well, and both teams, it was not your offensive super show of strength by either squad. The Browns, coming into the game, their 5 wins, had scored 30 plus points in all of those games. So the fact that they won the game today 10-7 at home, real good game for the Browns. Lots of things to talk about here. If you have a comment you want to share either on YouTube or Facebook, please send those comments in and we can communicate and answer some of your questions. But again, glad to have you here. This is the Johnny Cleveland podcast, and this is our Dawg post-game show. Victory Monday coming up tomorrow here in the great state of Ohio. Always a good week when the Brownies win a game, and the Browns now are 6-3 on the season. Just a great start to the year. Just Coach Stefanski did some things today in the game that I want to talk about briefly that some of folks in the post game and the media haven't even talked about. But I saw some things that were just tremendous from a coaching standpoint and have a lot to do with why the Browns are winning. And obviously today, let's hear from Nick Chubb. What an unselfish, great player. I just love Nick Chubb. If you could have a team of just Nick Chubbs, I mean, the guy just huge play at the end there, 3rd and 3. All the Browns needed was a first down and they could run the clock out. And he turned the corner, went 59 yards. And instead of scoring and disappointing or making a lot of fantasy league owners happy for scoring a touchdown, he went out at the 1-yard line because he knew that the Browns could run the clock out from there and not risk any crazy stuff happening at that point. And Nick Chubb had scored earlier in the game to give the Browns a decisive 10-0 lead at that point. But for him to step out of bounds and having that strength to do that and understanding of the game of football and what a team win means is just tremendous. I can't say enough about Nick Chubb. It was really interesting. Kareem Hunt had a great game as well. They both went over 100 yards. I was looking at some stats here. Let me see if I can pull the one up from. So this is the first time since 1966 in Cleveland Browns history. That's a long time. Think about that. The last time the Browns won their championship in 1964. So this back in 1966 was the last time the Browns had 2 running backs in the same game go for over 100 yards in the game. That was back then. It was Leroy Kelly and Ernie Green, who both had over 100 yards. Today, Kareem Hunt had 104 yards. Nick Chubb had 126 yards. So they're the first tandem of Browns to do it in the same game. I always think about Kevin Mack. Khalil Mack's playing now for the Bears, but back when the Browns had that great tandem of Ernest Biner and Kevin Mack, they never even had a combo of a game where they both had 100 yards. So props to Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Nick Chubb obviously has been out for several weeks, but he looked solid, looked fresh. Kareem Hunt, getting that bye week, definitely really just was trying to hit the holes very well. And, Nick Chubb, the way that he runs and those when he cuts back to the outside, just his vision as a running back is just awesome to watch. So good job to those two. Lots of things we can look at here in the game as far as stats too, but I just wanted to run through a couple things that I saw. Again, if you have any comments for the show, you want to ask a question or what you thought during the game. I would love to see those come up. Had a nice, we had our last podcast earlier in the week with the kids. Mo Money and Alec were on, so they are both. I was just talking to Mo Money. We've been having lots of issues with COVID, and I know the numbers are going high across the country. And she was just sharing with me that out there in Seattle, they're going down to kind of a basic shutdown in the state of Washington again. So I know here in Ohio, our numbers are skyrocketing. So it may be another lockdown. We'll see what happens with numbers later this week, but it does not look good for businesses. So hopefully we can maintain and continue to do those social distancing things and wear your masks. But back to the game real quick. All right. So, Myles Garrett, tremendous, had a sack again. I guess he just got credited. I went back and I looked at the stats just now, and they're only crediting Garrett for a half sack, which I thought he had a whole one. And then he also had the play in the first half against Deshaun Watson, where it was 4th down. They were driving, and he kept the ball. Watson did. Garrett caught him behind the line. I don't know why they did not give him the sack for that, because they call it a TFL. I don't know what that all stands for, but if if it's a TFL, if it's a player other than the quarterback who gets the ball behind the line of scrimmage and gets stopped short. So the fact that Watson had the ball, thought that would have been a sack as well. I credit Garrett for 2 sacks in the game, but according to the stat line, they only gave him a half credit. So, but he was tremendous again. It's nice to have him back, and he didn't look like he was bothered by his little tweak to his knee. So the Browns finally, they got that first drive that the Browns had, where they went down and they really had an opportunity to score a touchdown there. Kind of made some silly mistakes right there at the end, but they were able to get that 3-point lead. And who would have thought at that point early in the game that you're up 3-0, that would really, go to halftime, go in the midway through the third quarter. Finally, the Browns were able to break through, just solid running. From all the comments after the game, when they interviewed Stefanski and Mayfield, they've all said that, and Chubb, that the weather conditions today were just awful, that the wind, you think back, 2 weeks ago before the bye, they played the Las Vegas Raiders, and the Raiders really kind of pushed their way around and were really the more physical team. The Browns really were much more physical, much more engaged, seemed like they really wanted to win this game, which is a big, but they were able to really move the ball, especially late in that third quarter with their runs. And Nick Chubb had a really nice drive on that touchdown drive when they went up 10-0. He had several runs in that series, and they he finally got that 9-yard little cut back run that he just sees the field so well. He starts right and dashes back to the left and makes it look so easy. So that got him up 10-0. Then when the Browns later on, they got to stop. Let's give it up to the Browns defense as well. They forced 4 punts today from the Texans, which they didn't do last time when they played the Raiders. So the fact that the Browns defense was doing a lot more, they were creating havoc. They had other players like Sheldon Richardson get a sack. So they were doing just enough. We didn't get any turnovers, but they were forcing Houston out of their comfort zone. Deshaun Watson had a few spectacular, crazy plays, especially toward the end of the game. The play that Watson had where he was basically sacked and the Browns players were bumping into him, and somehow he managed to get out of that crowd late in the game with that 3 or 4 minute mark and threw that prayer up. How did that ball got to him and didn't get intercepted by one of the Browns players is just crazy. But they did score a touchdown prior to that score, though, that Houston had that actually got them to 10-7. The Browns did have a nice drive where they got the ball back with about 11 minutes to go, and they had about a 3 or 4 minute drive, and they really used Kareem Hunt there. Kareem had some really nice runs. There was a couple runs I wrote down on some notes. There was a big third down, like a 3rd down and 8 with about 11 minutes to go that Hunt made a first down on. I thought that was, that kept the clock running. He had another couple big runs right after that. Unfortunately, this is what I love about Stefanski. And I know a lot of people, I would encourage you, go back and watch the film. But in that series, okay, so the Browns had to give the ball up. So there was 7:50, or about, it was just over 8 minutes. The clock was ticking. The Browns got the ball. It was still like a 4th and 1 or 4th and 2. They were at the Texans 35 or 40. The Browns stayed out on the field acting like they were going to go for it on 4th down and 2. I knew when I saw that, I thought to myself, and maybe you did too, but I thought it was a brilliant move by Stefanski. The Texans had just earlier used one timeout when they couldn't decide if they wanted to go for it or kick a field goal, which they did. Which they tried to kick the field, which they missed. That was when the Browns were still, I think it was 3-0. So on this play, the Browns had the ball. It was about just under 8 minutes. I wrote it down here with about 7 minutes and 58 seconds to go. They forced Texas, or they forced the Texans to call their second timeout. And then the Browns brought out their punter. But they forced the Texans to that very, very big play that left the Texans with just one timeout the rest of the game. And you saw what happened at the end of the game and how the Browns really just had to get that first down. And they did. And they were able to close it out. So I thought it was just tremendous coaching on Stefanski's part. Just the smart like that to really make the coaching staff from the Texans have to think and have to use that timeout. So good job to Stefanski. I just find him to be very impressive every game. You just feel confident when you're watching the Browns play more and more that their coaches just really have the players' attention. The players are buying in to this team. They really are. And they have a trust amongst everybody. And that's half the battle. If you're play sports or in games, you got to have that bond. You got to have that trust between players and coaches, and they do. And so, again, I think that has a lot to do with why the Browns were able to pull this game out today. So they forced them to call the timeout. So that was I thought, and then, of course, we jumped to the end of the game. The Browns had that 3rd and 3, and they had Hunt in there, and then they brought in Chubb for that 3rd down play, and he was able to turn the corner. And just the idea that he, sprinting down the left sideline there, has an easy touchdown, could have put the Browns up, 17-7 with just under a minute to play. But you're giving Watson one final opportunity to do some miraculous stuff. Instead, Chubb runs out at the 1-yard line, and the Browns take the knee, and they win the game. Just awesome stuff by the Brownies. So next week they are playing the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles tonight played the New York Giants. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the other games that we watched today, but I'm just pulling up the box score here again from the Brownies. We'll talk about the Eagles here in a minute, but on the day, I've said this before, Baker Mayfield just did enough today. I know there are people out there constantly who are like, well, Mayfield's got to do this, or he's Jekyll and Hyde. And yeah, I don't see that. And what I see is a quarterback who is helping manage this team like Stefanski likes it. And he understands the talent he has surrounding him. And that's why these Browns are winning. And if you want Baker Mayfield to be a Cleveland Brown quarterback and win games for this team and for this city, you gotta stick with this guy. And a lot of, especially young folks who, that you're used to seeing Browns quarterbacks come and go because that's all you've seen since you've been following the Browns since '99. A lot of us older Browns fans have seen great quarterbacks like Brian Sipe and Bernie Kosar, who have been here for long periods of time. I don't know if Baker's going to be here for a long period of time, but he's managing games and he's doing it well. He didn't throw an interception. He took one sack today. It was not, a horrible situation that he put the Browns in. He was 12 for 20. So he's not putting the ball up 30 or 40 times. Yes, he had to, and he had a great game against the Bengals a few weeks ago, just tremendous. And you're going to need that from Baker Mayfield on occasion. But again, this was not the game that he needed to. Both Chubb and Kareem Hunt had 19 carries apiece, 19 each. Chubb finished with 126, Hunt with 104. Chubb's long run was 59 yards right there at the end of the game. Kareem Hunt had the 19-yard run late in that third quarter, I believe, as well. Receiving, he didn't have to throw the ball very much. Hollywood Higgins had a few catches, 3 catches, that is, for 48 yards. Landry had a couple. I know some people were a little bothered by the fact that Landry got up and threw the ball. I thought that was really ticky-tack how the referees did the unsportsmanlike play early in the first half when Landry does know better, but for the refs to, do that on a day like this, I just thought that was just simply, could have been overlooked. He was excited, but he's got to control himself. So Hunt had a few catches. Browns, didn't have many mistakes. The only mistake in that second half on the kickoff return, Donovan Peoples tried to grab the ball about the 5 or 6 yard line, and he kind of fumbled it. The Browns got the ball at the 1 or 2 yard line, but that was okay. They were able to run a few plays. But the defense came up again big. Garrett was everywhere like he usually is, creating havoc. For the Houston Texans, they had J.J. Watt on their defensive end, and he was doing quite a few things. But, Deshaun Watson is a great quarterback. I mean, he can be. And, it's interesting when you listen to these commentaries, especially the guys that were calling the game, Matt Millen or whatever that was on the TV broadcast, at least today. They were just talking endlessly about how, Watts or JJ Watt and Watson and all these receivers, but they're not winning, folks. Okay. The Texans aren't winning. You can look at the Texans and you can look at the Browns, and yes, Houston has a lot of talent, but what's the difference? I'll tell you what the difference is. This goes back to my podcast from the other day. It's karma. It's karma. The Texans got rid of a VP of communications earlier in the week. I think her name's Jenny Palsick, who had been with the organization. And if you were listening to our podcast before, I know my Mo Money was pretty upset about that. Why was she fired? Because of a cultural, they needed a cultural shift or change. I mean, the Texans are having problems, I think, because they don't have that trust. They're not together. They're not linked together like I think that the Browns coaches and the players are exhibiting right now. And I think that's the difference on any given Sunday when you have these NFL teams. You have, a great, quarterback in Deshaun Watson, and you got a great defender like JJ Watt, but they're not playing together as completely as a team. And that's why Houston is 2-7 now, I believe. So we're going to see Philadelphia. The Eagles are going to be coming to town next week, and they lost today to the New York Giants. I'm not real concerned. I said this before with Carson Wentz in a previous podcast, and I think I wrote about it in one of my articles for clevesportstalk.com. And what I was talking about then was that, Carson Wentz, I'll have to look at the stats for Wentz today from Philadelphia, but he's had a real rough year with interceptions, getting sacked. So I think the Browns defense, is going to really zone in on that. I think Garrett could have a really awesome game next week. We'll see what happens. I think the Eagles now are 3-5. I think the Eagles have a tie, right? Didn't they tie with the Cincinnati Bengals? Maybe I have to go back and look at that. So if anybody knows that answer, you can comment on the show. I see some of you are watching. Thank you. And again, we're on Facebook and on YouTube. So it's always great to have you aboard and love to see your comments. Again, the Browns did defeat the Texans 10-7. Let me see if I just throw this out here too. If you want to reach the show, here's my email. We've got showing up there right now, the jclevelandpod@gmail.com. Love to hear your comments and what you thought about the game today. I just like what I'm seeing out of the Browns. 6-3. They won the game, a must win, a game that they should have won. They were on paper, they were playing a team that was not as good as they were. Yeah, so Houston is 2-7 now. The Browns improved to 6-3. Let's see here. Nothing else really stood out that much other than, the wild weather. A lot of the players on both sides of the field talked about how the winds today were even worse than they were 2 weeks ago. So we'll see. I know. And then I hear all these people complaining about, we should have a dome. I mean, folks, come on, you're in Cleveland. This is the way it has been. Yes, maybe down the line, years from now, it could be a dome, but you got a great facility up there on the lakefront. I know the weather's a little nasty, but we're Clevelanders. That's Northeastern Ohio fans. That's what it's all about. All of you who are wanting a dome, you want comfort. Okay, fine. But this is Cleveland, man. There's a difference between Cleveland and Arizona. If you want to go and be in comfort, go out to Phoenix and go out to Arizona or go out to California. But you're a Browns fan. So you got to, get some thick skin and want to be there and be rooting for them, even if you're bundled up and you're freezing cold. That's what it's all about. So go Browns. Victory Monday. What a great week, right? All right. So a couple other, let's just look back here, give you a few rundowns on some of the other games this week. Right now, let's see the early games. We have, the earlier games today. We had the Packers. Green Bay ended up pulling one out against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Washington, the football team, they had a late comeback, but the Detroit Lions were able to come away with a win. We talked about the Brownies. Right now, we've got the the Bengals and the Steelers. The Squealers are up 22-7 right now at halftime. In early games right now, the Saints are up over the 49ers. The Rams are beating the Seahawks at the moment. The Buffalo Bills are beating the Cardinals. Buffalo is one of those tough teams that they're gonna get into the playoffs again. We'll see how this goes with the Browns. They needed to get this win. We're looking at the records right now. You've got the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins right now are beating the Chargers 20-14. The Dolphins are playing well, folks. And the Tennessee Titans are struggling a little bit. And then you got the Las Vegas Raiders. Those three plus, we're talking about the Dolphins, the Titans, the Raiders, and the Browns. It could be very interesting as we get closer to the end of the season. I know, like I keep saying, people talk about must wins. Yes, they're must wins, but this was a good win. So let's just focus on the Eagles. That's something too about the Brownies that I think Stefanski has really done a good job of getting these players to really buy into that idea of one game at a time. If you ever listen to the players, Chubb or Wyatt Teller, by the way, he came back today and had a really good solid start back at his right guard position. These players always talk about how Stefanski says, focused on just the next game. We have a bunch of one game seasons. And I'm telling you, you all see it. It's working. 6-3. Let's get ready for the next game against the Eagles. And I see that being a really good deal for the Browns. Let's see earlier games. There were a couple, like I said, the Giants held on to the Eagles. Every time I turned on to that Eagles game, it seemed like the Eagles were just right on the doorstep of scoring and taking the lead against the Giants. And the Eagles were just messing up. And Carson Wentz and his offense, they were just screwing up and doing things. And so that's why I think the Browns really have got to maintain their focus. Because every week it could be different, but I definitely see the Browns if hopefully we'll have some better weather and not so windy, maybe Baker Mayfield can get the ball up in the air a little bit more. But the Buccaneers, again, they played the Carolina Panthers today, had a big win. Tom Brady continues to lead the way there. And we talked about, so those are from the early games. So we'll see what happens tonight. The late game, earlier in the week on Thursday, we didn't really talk about this, but the Colts played the Titans and the Colts actually won. They beat the Tennessee Titans, of course. So that's another team. We overlooked the fact that the Browns did defeat the Colts early in the year, and that's looking like a bigger win all the times. Obviously, I'm watching over here on the corner over here. We got the Steelers and the Bengals playing right now. The Steelers are good, folks, and they're undefeated. Their best start, I think, ever, and that's saying a lot. The Steelers have had some pretty good success over the years, but I like what the Browns are doing right now. Good win for the Browns. I know it wasn't that exciting. There aren't too many 10-7 wins, but these are the kind of games that they must win, and they did get it. Never felt like throughout the game, unlike the Raiders game, you felt like the Browns really they were controlling the game. They were controlling their controlling the line of scrimmage. They were being more physical, and it all paid off, folks. So, and what Chubb did at the end of the game was just awesome. I can't say enough about it. I know you guys, those of you who follow the Browns, just an impressive game by him, and just such an impressive, unselfish play there at the end of the game to kind of seal the win. So good job to the Browns. Victory Monday tomorrow. Have a great week. Thank you for checking in with us on our Dawg post-game show. We'll be back later in the week. We'll start talking about the Philadelphia Eagles game. Hope to have some guests on, maybe have Mo Money and Alec back on the show. And we'll go from there. But until then, hopefully the Buckeyes, Ohio State, will get back to getting to play. They have potentially a big game next Saturday against the Indiana Hoosiers. Who would think that the Hoosiers would be undefeated? We'll see how the Buckeyes fare against that. We'll talk about that this upcoming week. Until then, everybody, I hope you have a great rest of your Sunday evening. And the Browns win today 10-7 over those Houston Texans. And the Browns improved to a record of 6 wins, 3 losses, and have the Philadelphia Eagles coming into town next week. Everybody have a great day. And remember to keep smiling. Take care, everybody.